It is another brand new episode of Flyers Daily here on the Flyers Broadcast Network. Flyers Daily, as always, is presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. And the Flyers looking to make it 2 in a row against the Winnipeg Jets. Second time in 3 games they'll take on the Jets after the shootout win on Saturday in Winnipeg. That was one of the Flyers' best games of the year, and, of course, hoping to duplicate that again tonight and get a little bit of a bounce back off the 6-3 loss to Calgary on Tuesday. I'm Brian Smith in again today for Jason Myrtetus, who has the day off. The Flyers have also had the day off on Wednesday, so they are coming in rested and ready to go for this contest here tonight, anticipating a full morning skates and probably more or less the same lineup. We'll see how things go here for the Flyers. We're going to see what the decision is on the goaltending situation as well as the day goes on. We do expect to see Sam Ersson back in the net tonight, as John Tortorella was pretty adamant in the press conference before the Calgary game that Sam Ersson is his number one, despite the great game that Fedotov had against Winnipeg. However, with that game, it might be a time for them to give him another shot. We'll see how things go. Certainly muddied the waters a little bit with how the Calgary game went, but I don't think the organization's position has changed one bit on Sam Ersson. Just a bit of an off night against Calgary, and that actually might be what catapults him back into this one against Winnipeg, as opposed to giving Fedotov a second shot. We'll see. Certainly going to need both goaltenders this weekend. There's a back-to-back coming up, matinee hockey, 12:30 on Saturday against the Seattle Kraken, 1 o'clock against the New Jersey Devils on Sunday. So they'll use both the goaltenders in that set, and we'll move on with the homestand from there. Again, the Winnipeg Jets are a team that perhaps the Flyers are catching at the right time. We've talked about this. Sometimes it's not who you play, it's when you play them. And Winnipeg had an 11-game win streak right before the Flyers got to Winnipeg. They lost the game before they played Philadelphia. That was on Thursday the 27th against Nashville. And then the Flyers came in and took that 2-1 shootout win. The Jets then lost the first game of this road trip they are on. They fell to the New York Islanders on Tuesday night, 3-2. So obviously Winnipeg is looking to get their ship back in the right direction. But again, it might have been a good time for the Flyers to catch them here, and maybe they can grab a couple more points here from the league's best team. Just to tell you how good Winnipeg's season has been so far this year. I mean, they went 14 without a loss to start the season, and that 11-game winning streak was a franchise record, still at 88 points on the year, and they are still 6 points ahead of the Dallas Stars in the Central Division. They've got a 10-point gap on the next best team in the West. That's the Vegas Golden Knights. So again, things chugging along pretty well here for Winnipeg. The only thing that maybe they've given up is the Washington Capitals have now caught them and tied them at 88 points for the league's best overall record at this point after an overtime win against the Rangers last night. And we're going to get more into that whole situation in just a little bit here. But, again, this is a very dangerous Winnipeg team. They play defense very well. They play offense just as well. If you get through both of those things, you got Connor Hellebuck to deal with. But again, the Flyers were able to kind of keep Winnipeg to the outside. It was a really delicate balancing act in that game of being able to do what John Tortorella calls checking forward, making sure that they are, moving forward into the offensive zone, making sure they're attacking, they're not sitting back. But at the same time, they also did a very good job of supporting the puck. And you never saw, I don't think, more than once in that game, a situation where Winnipeg had a rush with fewer than 3 Flyers below the puck, meaning between the puck and their net. So, they did a very good job of combining those two things. And, that's where they got their success from in that game. It's where the Flyers are going to have to get their success here over the rest of the season because that's the kind of team they are right now. They are not a team that can necessarily run and gun and just out offense teams. They got to play solid defense to start and then build from there. And that's the way John Tortorella and his staff have been building this team since they got here now, nearly 3 seasons coming up here at the end of this one under this staff. So that's certainly not going to change. The Calgary game, if you didn't see it, if you didn't see some of the aftermath of it, maybe it's one of those games that Tort said afterwards that he's just going to kind of write off. And it was, again, one of those situations where the Flyers flew back from Winnipeg a very late night. You've got to come back. Not only after the game, but you lose an hour with the time change in that particular situation. If you're coming back from the Mountain Time Zone, you lose 2 hours. That's why sometimes teams will just stay over and take that that flight the next day. But the Flyers chose to come back after the contest and get that extra day off at home. But you come back from those late night games. When you get here, you have to go through customs in Philadelphia, and the whole process probably adds about 45 minutes to the end of the trip. And so these guys are getting home late, 3:30, 4 in the morning for some of them, depending on how far away they're going. So what Torts mentioned after the Calgary game was you see the trend here with not the first day after a game like that, but the second day is sometimes a little bit hard to get going. And maybe you've experienced this in your day-to-day. If there's ever a time for some reason, I know when I was working morning radio, I would have this. Sometimes I'd go in and sub for a guy for a week. And, that first day of getting up at 5 a.m. wasn't really difficult at all. It was day number 2 when 5 a.m. rolled along. It's like, whoa, this is different. So, I'm sure they're going to look at that and see if there's ways to mitigate those situations down the road. But, it's just one of those things that it just kind of pops up in the schedule every now and then. The Flyers are actually going to have a similar situation coming back from this road trip in March, later in March here, where they're going to be on the road for 10 days, and then they're going to come back from Toronto after that last game. So they are going to have to clear customs again late at night. And so, I don't know, maybe this situation here will change how they handle that one. We'll have to see how it goes. But again, looking to bounce back from that Calgary game and get a strong performance against the Winnipeg Jets here this evening. And again, Winnipeg comfortably at the top of the standings in the NHL. They've got some room to play with here. Flyers, of course, do not. They're going to have a very a very strong rest of the season here if they even want to be in playoff contention at all, because that's just the way things are set up right now in the East. Everything is so stacked. And even though the Flyers were off yesterday and didn't even have to go to the rink, still lost a little bit of ground in the grand scheme of things. And that's what we wanted to get into in regards to that Rangers Capitals game, is that the Rangers were able to earn a point from the Washington Capitals, even though Washington did take the contest in overtime, and that tightened things up. The Ottawa Senators end up winning in overtime, so they get 2 points. Washington gets 1. And it just pulls that knot even tighter up there at that wild card spot as you look at the overall standings heading into this game here tonight. Columbus at 68 points, Ottawa 67, the Rangers 67, now tied in points, and that pushes the Detroit Red Wings after that Stadium Series loss all the way down into the 4th spot in terms of the teams fighting for the wild card. Basically, you got 8 teams going right now for 2 spots if you don't count the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they could be right back in it too with a couple of wins. But the Flyers are 5 points back of the bottom half of that wild card pack at the moment. And, it's going to be at the time of the season here where it starts to be a little bit of a tough climb. When you look at what else is going on with some of these other teams, it's you look at the Montreal Canadiens, who are probably the best example. Montreal is at 65 points. Okay, they're right in the middle of the pack. If you look at the wild card standings, 68 and 67 are the top 2. 67, 66, 65, 64, 63, 62 down to the Flyers. So, again, 1 point differences between all of those 6 teams. Montreal in the middle there at 65. They have gotten there because they've won 5 games in a row. A week ago, they were tied with the Flyers at 59 points down around that 8th spot. They've won 5 in a row. That's a great run, right? You'd be elated if you win 5 games in a row. Despite Montreal winning 5 games in a row, they are still 2 points back of a playoff spot with 2 teams in front of them. So it just kind of goes to show you how difficult it is to move up the standings, even though you might go out there and get on a tear. You're going to need some help from some other people and some other teams. Beating some other teams really is what you're going to need help with. So again, the Flyers are going to just continue to keep their nose to the grindstone here, play as well as they can here down the stretch, and hope the cards fall in their favor. We'll see where things are come April. Of course, we are just a couple of days here now from the trade deadline. It comes up tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And after that, everything's done for the year in terms of trades. So it's one of the 3 busy times of the year with teams exchanging picks, exchanging players. Of course, the other 2 are pretty close succession. You've got the draft, where a lot of things happen there, obviously, and then the free agency period are the 2 other kind of crazy times in the NHL calendar. But there's a lot of teams that are looking to shore up some loose ends here as they try to make a run for the cup coming down the stretch. And that's where the whole buyers and sellers things comes along. The Flyers, of course, have been pretty well advertised as to where they're at. They need a pretty big offer to part with guys like Scott Laughton, Rasmus Ristolainen, and they'll see what kind of offers they get on the rest of the roster. But Danny Briere has made it clear that if it's something that they look at and it makes sense for where the team is right now and their future, they're going to take a really close look at it. So it's going to be an interesting 24 hours or so here until this deadline. Things have already started to happen, though, and some of them are happening with teams that are on the Flyers docket here in the immediate future. For example, the Seattle Kraken are coming in here on Saturday, and they had one of the bigger trades of the day today. Is Oliver Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gourde are both headed back to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Well, for Gourde, I should say, he's going back, but they are both headed to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and so that obviously weakens the Seattle Kraken coming in here on Saturday. But it strengthens the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Flyers have 2 games against them here in the next couple of weeks. On the back second week of this homestand, Thursday the 13th, Tampa will be in Philadelphia, and then the Flyers will be in Tampa for a return engagement on Monday, March 17th, of course, St. Patrick's Day. So it's it's interesting to kind of watch some of these names move around and see how it might affect what's coming up for the Flyers. There's certainly other deals that are in the works, I'm sure. Luke Schenn has gone from St. Louis to Pittsburgh at the moment, at least as of this recording on Wednesday night. But it's obviously past when the Flyers have played all those games against the Penguins, so that's not going to have a direct effect there. But there's going to be certainly some more moves here coming up over the next 24 hours, and we'll see where things go. But it is a little bit of a crazy time, and it's not as crazy as say the free agency period, when you start seeing people writing pretty crazy checks for players that maybe are a little bit of an overpayment. But you could certainly see a trade that could greatly benefit the Flyers moving down the road for an opportunity to have another team take a kick at the can this year. The one that comes to mind, perhaps relatively recently, I guess it's been almost 20. It's been 20 years now, but when the Flyers picked up Braden Coburn for Alexei Zhitnik back when the Atlanta Thrashers were trying to make a run. Obviously, that was a huge trade for the Flyers in the long term. They were also able to, again, in that 06-07 season where things didn't go well at all, gave Peter Forsberg a shot in Nashville, and they end up at the end of that whole situation, they end up with Scott Hartnell and Kimmo Timonen after another deal later on in the summer that kind of spawned from that. So there's lots of ways that you can look at things and improve your team for the long run, and I'm sure that the Flyers have their ear to the floor looking for opportunities here, and if they come, they come. If not, might be something that comes over the summer. But it's definitely an exciting time around the NHL, especially if you're an NHL fan. I don't know how exciting a time it is if you're a player. It can certainly be a little bit of a nerve-wracking time for players. But, vast majority of them understand it's part of the business, and it's just what comes with the territory of being on an NHL roster, and everything, of course, that comes along with it. But we'll see where the Flyers end up here in about 24 hours. So we'll call it a night here on this episode of Flyers Daily, and we'll have, of course, full coverage of the game against the Winnipeg Jets coming up for you later on tonight. It is a 7 p.m. puck drop with the telecast on NBC Sports Philadelphia Radio. Tonight's on 93.3 WMMR. We'll have the pregame show for you beginning at about 10 minutes before the hour. And, of course, intermission and postgame coverage for you there, as well as Flyers look to pick up a second win on the season against the Winnipeg Jets. And anything else that pops up before then, of course, we'll keep you informed as the day goes on. And again, planning some special coverage here on the Flyers Broadcast Network for Friday afternoon. So stay with our social channels and our website on Friday, and we will tell you where we are at. And we're going to have a fun time on Friday with the trade deadline coming and going. And from there, probably going to know a little bit more about what the Flyers are doing here to chart the course for the future as they head through the rest of this season and into the offseason. Believe it or not, just about 20 games now left to go in this 24-25 season. It has gone by just that quickly, and it seems to get a little bit shorter every year. But again, the Flyers looking toward the future here as they have been for a couple of years now, but also going to see what kind of damage they can do here in the present as this season continues on. So again, looking for another couple points here tonight against the Winnipeg Jets. I'm Brian Smith again, in for Jason Myrtetus tonight. We send our best to him. Shoot him a note if you follow him on social media. Let him know you're thinking about him. Hopefully we'll have him back for the deadline here as the week goes on. But we hope you enjoy the game tonight, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.